Good evening, guys. So, students, how are you? So, students, we are into the second part of this chapter, risk assessment and internal control. So, in our last lecture, guys, you'd remember that we had discussed about audit risk. We had also understood what are the components of audit risk. That audit risk is made of risk of material misstatements and detection risk. It was also made clear to you that risk of misstatement can be further broken into inherent risk and control risk. We had also understood that an auditor would always try to lower his risk. Although audit risk cannot be completely eliminated, it cannot be reduced to zero, but the auditor will try to reduce the audit risk so that he is not in a situation where he gives inappropriate opinion when financial statements are materially misstated. So that was clear. We had also discussed about risk assessment procedures, and we had also learned that how important it is for an auditor to understand, to gain a knowledge about the business of the company, about the client. Okay, guys. So today we would be discussing about internal control, its meaning, its objectives, its components, and other aspects. So is that clear, guys? Should we move further? So students, what is internal control? What is its meaning? So I told you, students, whatever we are discussing in this chapter is in context of, largely in context of SA 315. So internal control, you can understand, it is a process designed by management. It is designed, implemented, and maintained. All the three things. The management is responsible for designing it, management is responsible for implementing it, and the management is responsible for maintaining it. What does it mean? That all control systems, all internal controls within the company are designed by the management. These are the responsibility of the management, and management is responsible for implementation of these controls so that business can be run without hindrance, efficiently, effectively, and management itself is responsible for maintaining means that controls continue to operate as these were intended. Okay, so it is a process which is designed, implemented, and maintained by the management. For what? For what? So it does what? Now we will understand. To ensure four things. Number one, to ensure reliability of financial reporting. And second is to ensure that business is carried on effectively and efficiently. Effective and efficient conduct of business. And third is safeguarding of assets. Now, whatever assets the business has, say, obviously in a company there would be many assets, it's machinery, and a host of other assets like stocks and many such things. So the system, the internal control system should be such that it is responsible for safeguarding of these assets, that these are not misappropriated. Okay. And fourth is compliance with laws and regulations. That the company continues to comply with the various laws applicable to it. Okay, so these are the four things. So guys, are these four things clear? Let me know. Yes, are these four things clear? Number one, to ensure reliability of financial reporting. Number two, efficient and effective conduct of business. Number three is safeguarding of assets. And number four is compliance with laws and regulations. So, students, what could be the possible advantages of an internal control system, and how does it assist the auditor? Basically, we are more concerned about how the study of internal control system is helpful to auditor. So you understand that every organization has to develop an in-house system. I told you last time also that every organization, every company has to develop an in-house system to carry on its business. Otherwise, it would not be possible for it to run its business. So the auditor's role here is to study that internal control system, to evaluate the internal controls, whether these are operating effectively or not. Because if controls, you understand, if these are operating effectively, then auditor's level of comfort goes up. He can place more reliance upon the controls, and obviously his degree of control risk would come down. Okay, so that is the importance of study of internal controls. So basically, how does it help the auditor? So the study of internal control helps auditor in three ways. Number one is to identify potential misstatements. कि फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में स्टूडेंट्स कौन कौन सी पोटेंशियल मिसस्टेटमेंट्स हैं, पोटेंशियल हो सकती हैं. सो when the auditor studies internal control system, when he makes an assessment of it, when he evaluates it, then he is able to identify potential misstatements. Okay, and it also helps auditor to identify risk of material misstatements. And very important thing, another very important thing, what is that? That is, it helps the auditor in designing his audit procedures, in designing nature, time, and extent of audit procedures. So this is the most important benefit. So guys, when the auditor evaluates internal control, when an auditor understands the internal control system, then it helps him to ponder over which are the audit procedures to be performed. He determines the extent of checking, because if he sees that internal control system is operating effectively, then obviously his level of checking would reduce, because because he knows that controls are operating effectively. Okay, and if it is otherwise, if controls are not operating satisfactorily, then he will design his audit procedures accordingly. His area of checking would increase. He would design his procedures, their extent, their scope, in accordance with that. Okay, so is it clear? Yes, guys, is it clear? Now, guys, tell me one thing. Is every internal control system foolproof? The management has devised a system that my business goes on smoothly, that there is no scope of errors or frauds, that every transaction which is done is captured in the accounting books. It is recorded, nothing is missing. So by that standard internal control should be a foolproof system, but no, it is not a foolproof system, because of what? Because of the limitations of internal control. So what are those limitations? Look, students, every system is run by people, isn't it? So human element is always there in any system. So it could be that some employees might collusion among employees. Say if two persons are responsible for doing something, say one person is responsible for entering that transaction and another is responsible for checking that transaction, and both the persons collude, then they can bypass the internal control easily. So there is always a risk. There would always a risk that control can be bypassed. Okay, clear, guys? And second thing could be lack of understanding. For the purpose, say, guys, the management has devised the internal control for some purpose, for some objective. But the employees, the persons who are supposed to execute it, they are not able to understand it. So they understand the things in different way. They are not able to understand its significance. Say, for an example, the management wants a report weekly in respect of some important things relating to inventories, but the concerned employees, they are not well aware about the importance or significance or objective of that report. So they might take it lightly, and they may not perform their duties. Okay. Yes, Anand, you are asking what is the verb for NTE? NTE is an acronym we had told you for remembering. It means nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedures. Nature means what kind of audit procedures would be performed by the auditor, whether it is going to be inspection, whether it is going to be observation, or whether he would be inquiring, and timing, at what time it would be performed, and extent means what would be the scope, what would be the scope, कितना कितना checking करेगा, what would be the scope. Okay, so is it clear to you, Anand? And one more thing could be, apart from collusion, is human judgment in decision making. So guys, human judgment is involved in most of the decisions that an organization would be making. So it is possible that some persons make genuine mistake. They might not do it intentionally, but they may judge the things wrongly. Okay, and another thing is limitation in case of small companies, in case of small entities. So students, in small organizations, uh, what is there? There is no formalized organizational structure. Like many things, owner would be himself doing. So the duties might not be segregated nicely. So what would happen in such case? There would be no structured formal system in place. So what would happen in such case? So there are both uh, benefits and drawbacks of it. Now, a benefit is that owner is himself looking after many things, so he can exercise greater control. He knows he knows on his fingertips what is happening. Okay, in case of a small company, and what could be the drawbacks, because he is responsible for doing many things himself. So whatever little controls are there, he can easily override them, and and he may do such things which are not considered good by the auditor. Okay, so he himself may override the controls. So these are some of the limitations. These are some of the limitations in the internal control. So you understand, guys? Any difficulty? Yes, guys, tell me so that we can proceed further. It is a fairly long chapter, students. Yes, yes, students, tell me. Any doubts up till here? So students, one more thing you have to understand that a company, an organization, an entity may be having controls for many things for running its business. Now, whether all the controls are relevant for the auditor. Now tell me guys, whether all the controls which are there in the business for running the business, which push the business, whether all these controls are relevant for the purpose of audit or there is something else. So obviously the auditor is not concerned with all the controls. Okay, so the auditor is concerned with only those controls which are relevant for the audit. Which are relevant for the audit. Now you would say, what are these controls which are relevant for the audit? Now, what are these controls which are relevant for the audit? Students, you have to understand that whatever the objectives of the company are, now the company would be setting, it would be devising controls directly in relation to those objectives. Isn't it? Because it is for the achievement of these objectives that the company has devised controls. Okay. Is that clear, students? Is that clear, students? Now we will discuss what are the factors which determine whether a control is relevant for audit or not. Factors which determine whether control is relevant for audit or not. Now, what could be the factors? Factors, guys, like number one, materiality. So, if there is a very significant item, there is a very important item, so obviously controls upon it would be relevant. So this is a factor to be considered whether controls are relevant for audit or not. Okay. Number two, significance of risk, significance of related risk. So the risk which has been identified, how important it is, how significant it is. Because if the risk is more significant, obviously that control would be relevant. Okay. And size of the company, size of the entity. Say if the entity is large or small, these things have to be considered by the auditor for analyzing whether a particular control would be relevant or not. Okay, in case of a large company, his criteria would be different. In case of a company having a limited scale of operations, his criteria would be different. And similarly, nature of business. What is the nature of business? What the company is doing? What is nature of its operations? In which line of, say, manufacturing it is, or is it a trading company, or is it in service sector? Because then the auditor would be able to judge, to see whether a particular control is relevant for audit or not. Okay. And similarly, complexity of operations. What does it mean? That whether the company is into um, some sort of business which is very complex and which is very technical, and then the auditor would have to delve more deep into the operations of the company, and thereby he would have to decide whether a control is relevant for audit or not. Okay, so are these factors clear to you? Some of these factors. So students, we would be coming to your module also. So we are first going through brief overview, brief outline, to make you understand in layman's language what is the meaning of internal control, what are its benefits, what are its limitations, and what are the factors to be considered whether whether a particular control is relevant for audit or not. Okay. And another thing is, guys, nature and extent of understanding controls. Now, two things here have to be considered by the auditor. Students, in controls, two things are important. Number one, design of control. And number two is operation of control. Operation of control. पहली चीज तो है स्टूडेंट्स कि कंट्रोल का डिजाइन कैसा है. द ऑडिटर वुड सी कि कंट्रोल जो मैनेजमेंट ने इस ट्रांजैक्शन के लिए बनाया है, whether it will achieve its desired objectives or not, whether it is capable of preventing a misstatement or correcting and detecting a misstatement. Say design of control is very important. Say if the control has not been designed properly, if the auditor thinks, he comes to conclusion that control has not been designed properly, then it is a deficiency in the control system, because then in such a case the management would not realize its objectives of reliable financial reporting. Okay, so design of control is very important. And what is second point? Second point is operation of control. Key students, management has devised a control. Okay, कि ये system, this system should proceed like this. Like when the goods are sold, these are its entries are correspondingly reduced from stock records, and say when the goods move out of the factory, there is proper authorization. So these kind of things. And management has put a system of checks and balances. But it is also important to see that this control is in effect working. कि वो काम भी कर रहा हो. If it is not operating effectively, then it is of no use. Then it is of no use. Then it is of no use. Isn't it, guys? So there are two things. So there are two things when we understand controls, nature and extent of understanding controls. One is design and another is operations. Operation of controls. So design of the controls should be proper. That controls should be such that these should be able to achieve the desired outcome. These should be able to achieve the desired objective. And these controls should function also. These controls should function effectively. Say if management has devised some control and it is not functioning, management has devised a control that say bank reconciliation statement is to be prepared weekly or fortnightly after every 15 days, but it is not being done. Then what is the use of such a control? What is the use of such a control? Then this control, if it is not operating, then it is of no use. So you have to understand that control should not only be properly designed, but it should also function effectively. Is it clear to you guys? So both things are important. Not only design of control, but its operation is also very, very important. Okay. So now we shall go to your module to see what is there in respect of what we have done till now. So what does SA 315 states that internal control is a process designed, implemented and maintained. This I told you, designed, implemented and maintained. Very important that management is responsible for internal control system. Broadly, you can understand that management would devise control, it would implement those controls, and it would be responsible for their maintenance, for their monitoring also. Okay. By whom? By management or those charged with governance to provide what? To provide reasonable assurance. Again, why SA 315 is saying that they provide reasonable assurance? Because due to the limitations of internal control, because as just we have discussed that no system can be foolproof. There is a possibility of human judgment going wrong or collusion between the employees of the company. Okay. To provide reasonable assurance about what? About the achievement of an entity's objective with regard to 4 things. What are these 4 things? to reliability of financial reporting. One is reliability of financial reporting. And what is second point? Second is effectiveness and efficiency of operations. That operations are carried out effectively means whatever is desired, it is achieved, and not only effectively but efficiently at not at exorbitant cost. Okay. Number three is safeguarding of assets. That assets are safeguarded. And number four, compliance with applicable laws and regulations. So these four points of this definition of internal control are clear to you, students? And also, guys, when we refer to internal control, we also refer to it as normally as controls. When we say controls, it can mean any component of internal control system, any part. Okay, so control is a term also used generally. So what are the objectives of internal control? What are the objectives of internal control? Now, first objective is, look, students, every company, every businessman, he would want, every entrepreneur, he would want that whatever is done in his business, whatever is done in his company is done according to his instruction, according to his authorization. It is only then the objectives of the company, the objectives of organization can be achieved. So that is the foremost objective, that transactions are executed in accordance with the management specific authorization. Okay, that employees are not able to do the things at their will, that without any system they are free to do the things according to their will. So if they are allowed to do things according to their will, then how a system, how a business will run? It will collapse, isn't it, guys? Unless there is a structured system. In absence of that structured system, the business is likely to collapse. Okay. Number two, all transactions are promptly recorded in the correct amount in the appropriate accounts and in the accounting period, so that reliable financial information is prepared. Okay. So all the transactions are, first thing is that all the transactions are done according to the express authorization of management. Now the transaction has been done. Now what could be the second logical step? The transactions are recorded correctly. Okay. The system captures those transactions correctly. Okay. So that it is only when these are recorded in correct amounts and in correct accounts, both things are important. Correct amount and correct accounts in appropriate accounts, then only financial statements would be representing a reliable picture. Okay. And number three is assets are safeguarded from unauthorized use. This we have discussed. Fourth is recorded assets are compared with existing assets. So whatever is there in the books of accounts, that is compared what is physically. Say like that is why physical verification of stocks is done. That is why fixed assets are verified at periodic intervals. So clear? So it is a matter of auditor's professional judgment whether a control is relevant to the audit. Ultimately, it is a matter of professional judgment. So we had understood what is the meaning of professional judgment. Professional judgment, the auditor has gathered through his skill, through his experience of many years. So it is left to his professional judgment to decide whether a particular control in itself or in a combination of others is relevant for audit or not. Okay. Now, benefits of understanding internal control. What are the benefits of understanding internal control system? These all things we had done. Identifying types of potential misstatements. कौन सी potential misstatements हो सकती हैं? Number 2, identifying factors that affect the risk of material misstatement. And not the least, very important, designing the nature, timing, and extent of further audit procedures. Because the internal control, the study of internal control helps the auditor in designing nature, timing, and extent of his further audit procedures. Which procedures are to be adopted? Whether he want to physically inspect something, what should be its time, when he should perform that procedure, say whether it is to be performed in the middle of the year or at the end of the year, and what is its extent, how far checking is to be done. Okay. So purpose of internal control we have already studied. Now limitations of internal control. So what are the limitations of internal control? First thing already done. Internal control provides only reasonable assurance, because as you know that no system can be foolproof, and so that is why it provides only reasonable assurance. मैनेजमेंट ने जितने मर्जी स्टेप्स लिए हों सिस्टम को फुल प्रूफ बनाने के, लेकिन उसमें चांसेस रहते हैं, देयर वुड ऑलवेज बी चांसेस. ओके. ह्यूमन जजमेंट इन डिसीजन मेकिंग. Human judgment can be faulty, and because of this there can be bypassing of the internal control or breakdown of internal control. Okay. Lack of understanding the purpose, like the employees have not understood the purpose for which control was designed. So like I had told you, I had given you the example of bank reconciliation statement. The management has designed a control that bank reconciliation is to be prepared weekly or say fortnightly, but the concerned accountant, he does not understand the importance of it. Okay. He takes it very lightly. Sometimes he prepares it, sometimes he doesn't, because he doesn't know about he has no understanding that what is the importance of this bank reconciliation statement. Okay. He might be an inexperienced person. So collusion among people, that controls can be circumvented. Circumvented means bypassed. So controls can be circumvented by collusion of, जब लोग मिल जाते हैं, by 2 or more people, or inappropriate management override of internal control. Say it can also happen that management is itself involved in overriding the system. The management has devised the control, but due to some reason, or it might say for some reason, say management, when management itself is involved in fraudulent financial reporting, then it may override the control systems. Okay, which were devised by the management itself. Okay. So example is there. Management may enter into side agreements with customers apart from the standard sale contracts, which may result in improper revenue recognition. इसका क्या मतलब है स्टूडेंट्स? इट मीन्स से देयर इज ए सेल्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, जिन लोगों को कंपनी माल बेच रही है उनके साथ उनका कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है। सो बुक्स में जो रेवेन्यू आ रहा है वो उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के बेसिस पे रिकॉग्नाइज हो रहा है, लेकिन मैनेजमेंट कोई एक अलग से एग्रीमेंट कर लेती है अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, और उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का ऑडिटर को पता नहीं है। ओके, सो इट माइट रिजल्ट इन improper revenue recognition. Okay, judgments by management. So management judgments can also be wrong in designing and implementing the control. Say the management has designed some control, thinking some objective, but the design of the control is not proper uh, due to lack of proper judgment by the management. Okay. Limitations in case of smaller entities. Now this we have already done, that in small entities it can act as both ways, that the owner manager, a person who is the owner, he would be doing many things. So one advantage is that he is having an effective oversight, he knows what is happening in a small company. And on the other side, if he wants to override the controls, because these are not formalized properly, so he can easily override. He knows how to manipulate the things because everything is centralized, everything is in his hands. Clear, guys? So students, is that clear? Now controls relevant to the audit. Controls relevant to the audit. Now this we had just done, that factors which decide whether a control is relevant for audit or not. This is very important. Sometimes students, this question has come in the exams. Factors which are relevant to the auditor's judgment whether a control is relevant for an audit or not. What are the factors to be considered by him? Number one, materiality. Okay, significance, how related risk is important. The size of the entity. Now, if the company is big, then as compared to a small company, a control which was relevant in small company, but in case of a big company, that might not be relevant. Okay. The nature and entity, the nature of business, including its organization and ownership characteristics. Now, Dinyansh, you are asking, please tell the example. Say, Dinyansh, if it is a, say if a company is into the manufacturing of something, then what, then controls would be required for its purchases, sales, and all these controls would be relevant. And say if that company is simply a trading company, okay, or it is say selling on online platforms, then different type of controls would be required, then those controls would be relevant. Okay, Dinesh, is that clear? Similarly, the diversity and complexity of entities operations. This is also self-explanatory. Applicable legal and regulatory requirements, also nothing to explain. So these kind of things. The nature and complexity of systems that are part of internal control, including the use of service organizations. Okay. So And one more thing in this is controls over completeness and accuracy of information. Say students, you have to understand, एक कंट्रोल ऑडिटर के लिए तभी रेलिवेंट होगा जब वो कंट्रोल उसको यूजफुल है फर्दर प्रोसीजर्स को डिजाइन करने के लिए, लाइक controls over the completeness and accuracy of information produced by the entity. Say it is talking about the controls which are over the completeness and accuracy of information, that the final information which is produced by the entity, whether control over that is relevant or not. वो कंट्रोल रेलिवेंट उसी सिचुएशन में होगा अगर ऑडिटर उस कंट्रोल को यूज करना चाहता है कोई अपना ऑडिट प्रोसीजर डिजाइन या परफॉर्म करने के लिए. से एक एग्जांपल दिया हुआ इसमें, if the auditor is checking revenue means sales, by applying standard prices to records of sales volume, we assume that there is a single product and it is having a standard price which has remained constant throughout the year, and the auditor then this information, whether this price is correct or not, whether this rate provided to him is correct or not, it would be relevant if he is performing this type of control. Otherwise it is not relevant. Okay, so internal control over safeguarding of assets. Obviously there would be many controls over safeguarding of assets. Okay, so like there is a payment system, there is a system by which cash payments are made. Okay, there is a say software, there is a computerized system, so there is a password in it, so that password is relevant. The fact that password is changed regularly, its security is not compromised, this thing is relevant for audit because fraud can happen. But say if there is some safeguard that some material is not used excessively, there is the material is issued in accordance with the in accordance with the scheduling of production, then that control may not be relevant for a financial statement audit. Okay. So it is also giving an example like controls relating to objectives that are not relevant. Say in case of an airlines, now the airlines has devised a control that all the flights run according to some automated system. Okay, so there is a system of automated controls to maintain flight schedules. Now this is a control to run the business. Okay, so this control may not be directly relevant for the financial statements audit. Similarly, you can say in case of an export house, a company is selling goods to its overseas customer and it has built some control that shipments are delivered in time. Okay, that goods move out of the factory and dispatched in time and the shipment reaches in time to the overseas buyer. Now this control is relevant for running the factory properly. This type of control may not be relevant directly for financial statements audit. Okay. So is that clear to you guys? and nature and extent of the understanding of relevant controls. This I have already told you that not only design is important, but operations are also important. That the auditor has to see that design of the control is suitable. It is in a position to uh, prevent misstatements occurring and correcting and detecting misstatements. And second point is that control operates, that control is implemented, that control exists and the company is using it. Say अगर एक कंपनी ने कोई कंट्रोल बना दिया लेकिन उसका यूज ही नहीं हो रहा तो उस कंट्रोल का क्या फंक्शन है? Similarly, an improperly designed control may represent a significant deficiency in internal control. Now that is very important. So that is why we say that not only implementation but design of the control is also important. So these both things are to be seen, design and implementation. Clear, guys? Now how would the auditor be seeing about the design and implementation of relevant controls? So what are the risk assessment procedures in this regard? These would be inquiry of the employees. लोगों से employee से पूछा जाए. Number 2 could be observing application of satisfactory control, observing something. Now somebody is doing some operation, you see him doing that operation. So observing the application of specific control. Say guys, you go to bank. Okay. So when you go to bank for say cash withdrawal or some other thing, you see that one person is doing something, then that transaction moves to the system of second person. One person does that, another person completes it. Okay. So when you see such kind of things, you are observing application of that control. The auditor is itself observing application of that control. He is seeing that these things are happening. सिर्फ कागजों में लिखा नहीं हुआ है. These things are actually happening. Okay. Observing application of specific control. Number 3, inspecting documents and reports. Now, the auditor inspects the manuals, the internal literature of the company, the internal guidelines of the company to see whether what is the system, who authorizes the transactions and whether these are happening or not. Okay. Tracing transactions through the information system, tracing the transaction from the system to financial reporting. कि सिस्टम ने उसको कैप्चर किया है and it is properly reported in the financial statements. And you have to also understand that only inquiry is not sufficient. That is very important. Inquiry is not sufficient. You must have read in chapter 3 also that inquiry in itself is not sufficient as an audit procedure. Isn't it? If I ask from some information from some employee and he says, sir, this is done like this. So now I want to obtain comfort. I want to obtain evidence that whatever he is telling me is correct or not. So how I am going to see that whatever I have inquired is correct or not? So inquiry was the first step. It was the first part. But now I want more confirmation. So how I could do that? Either I would see some document or I would see that thing happening practically, like observing the application of specific control. So is it clear to you guys? Is it clear to you guys up till here? Is it clear, students? Tell me. Then we will come to components of internal control. Yes, guys, tell me, is it clear to you? Yes, Mohammed Abid, Vora, Sapna, and what about others? So, guys, now we will come to components of internal control. Components of internal control. So, what do we mean by components? Components mean internal control किनसे बना है? So guys, by now you will have understood that internal control system is not a physical thing. जब आप ऑडिट करने जाते हो तो इंटरनल कंट्रोल आपको कहीं से कोई फिजिकल आपको ढूंढना नहीं है. इट रन्स एवरीवेयर इन एवरी बिजनेस प्रोसेस. इट इज देयर. ये जो आपको समझाया जा रहा है, इट इज फॉर योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, ताकि आप समझे कि इंटरनल कंट्रोल का क्या पर्पस है, उसको कैसे इवेल्युएट किया जाता है. ओके. यस ज्योति, यू कैन आस्क अबाउट डाउट. इफ यू हैव टाइम वी विल टेक. You are saying that you have doubt about last session. You can send your query. I'll see if we can take it or not. Yes, Anand, you are saying control setup for operations are not relevant. Not all the controls setup for operations are relevant. लाइक से ऑपरेशंस के लिए तो आनंद बहुत सारे कंट्रोल्स होते हैं. एक प्लांट है, वो प्लांट किस टाइम बंद होगा, किस टाइम चलेगा, तो ये हर एक ऑपरेशन का कंट्रोल ऑडिटर के लिए रेलिवेंट थोड़ा है. लेकिन ऑपरेशंस के वो कंट्रोल जो कि उन चार चीजों के लिए है कि जो फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग का ऑब्जेक्ट, फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग है वो रिलायबल रहे, मेरी एसेट सेफ गार्डेड रहे, कॉम्प्लायंस विद रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन होती रहे और बिजनेस इफेक्टिवली चले. ओके. So components of internal control, guys. So there are 5 components of internal control, students. These are all as per SA 315. Remember, we are doing SA 315. So first component is, first I am writing names and then we will study one by one. First thing is control environment. So that you are familiar with first names, control environment. Second thing is entities risk assessment process. Third thing is information system. And fourth thing is control activities. And fifth thing is monitoring of controls. So first, guys, we will we will understand these things generally, then we will quickly go through your module. So first try to understand these things in a layman's language कि इनका मतलब क्या है, then we will go to your module. Okay, because once you grasp their basic sense, their basic idea, it would be very easy for you. So first thing is control environment. Now we are into the components of internal control. Now first thing is control environment. Now what is control environment? Control environment, students, control environment means the overall environment in which the company is operating. Say it includes such things like say integrity of the management. कि जो से कंपनी के लोग हैं, जो प्रमोटर्स हैं, जिन लोगों की कंपनी है, whether these are ethical people or not, whether these are people who have integrity, or the promoters are fraudsters, or they are regular violators of laws. Okay, so first thing is this to understand, only if the people behind the company, if the owners of the company, they are honest, they are ethical people, then only they can devise a system, then only they can devise a control system which gives desired results. Isn't it, guys? अगर जो कंपनी के पीछे प्रमोटर्स हैं, उसके की मैनेजरियल पर्सन हैं, अगर उनकी इंटेंशन ही ठीक नहीं है, if those people are involved in unethical practices, or these are not honest, those people are not honest, they are not committed to good corporate practices, then how would they ensure that their employees also run according to system? Okay, because at most of the times they themselves be involved in whatever system they have developed. Okay, and another thing, not only this, कंट्रोल एनवायरनमेंट में और क्या क्या आता है, सच थिंग्स लाइक कंपनी का ऑर्गेनाइजेशन स्ट्रक्चर कैसा है, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन स्ट्रक्चर से डिफरेंट एम्प्लॉयज की क्या ड्यूटीज हैं, क्या वो एक पिरामिड बेस्ड स्ट्रक्चर है, कमांड बेस्ड है, गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसेस की तरह लाइक ब्यूरोक्रेटिक स्ट्रक्चर है, या टीम बेस्ड स्ट्रक्चर है. ओके, सो दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स. And one more important thing, what are the human resource policies of the company? Say human resources, the people who are working in the company, they are the most important assets. They are the most important assets. So if a company doesn't care about the people, if the employee turnover is very high, so you understand employee turnover, guys? Employee turnover means that employees join the company and after some time they leave the company. So if the employee turnover is very high, that so many employees are leaving the company in short notice, so it would mean that they are not they are not satisfied. So it would put a serious question mark on the human resource policies, on the HR policies of the company, that employees are not satisfied, and either the company is not paying them, or their work is not allocated properly, or the company has not recruited proper people, it has not trained them. Okay, so these kind of things, so all these kind of things make control environment of the company. Is that clear to you guys? Okay, and what is the management philosophy? Management की philosophy क्या है? Whether it is whether management itself want that they should not be on the wrong side of law, that they want to follow the laws and regulations, or the management, as I've told you, is itself involved in violation of laws. Okay, so if the management say is itself involved in violation of laws, then it reflects upon the badly upon the thinking of the management. Okay, employee turnover means not cost of training or hiring. Employee turnover means that employees are joining and leaving the company in a short notice. There is high, when we say that the company has a high turnover of employees, it means employees are speedily leaving the company. The company might not be firing them, but they are leaving voluntarily. Okay, so this is what we mean by the what control environment. क्योंकि इसी कंट्रोल एनवायरनमेंट में तो स्टूडेंट्स कंट्रोल फंक्शन करेगा. दिस यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड. अगर कंपनी का ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का कल्चर, अगर उसका एनवायरनमेंट ही टोटल ठीक नहीं है, देन हाउ वुड यू एक्सपेक्ट कंट्रोल्स टू फंक्शन प्रॉपरली एंड इफेक्टिवली? क्या हो सकता है? अगर इफ द मैनेजमेंट इज अनएथिकल, if its employee policies are not good, if its HR policies are not good, if proper segregation of duties of staff is not made, then how the company would run its business effectively? So all these things affect the control system, the internal control system. So all these things are part of the control environment. It means the environment in which the control system is functioning. Is that clear? Control environment is clear, students? This is the one component, one aspect of the internal control system. Now, second thing is entities risk assessment process. Now, students, you have to remember that it has not to be confused. It is not to be confused with the risk assessment done by auditor. That is a separate thing. The risk assessment procedures carried out by the auditor, these are a different issue. Those are meant to identify and assess risk of areas of risk of material misstatement. उनमें तो when an auditor carries out risk assessment procedures, उसका मतलब होता है कि ऑडिटर देख रहा है he tries to identify the areas where there could be a risk of material misstatement. Here we are talking about the entity's risk assessment process, that company's own risk assessment process. Company's own risk assessment process. It is about the business risks. It is about the business risks. Like there are 4 steps in it. That is identification of business risks, which are relevant to financial reporting. So we will consider it with example relevant to financial reporting. And second thing is, how important is that risk? How important or significant is that risk? Third is likelihood of it happening. उसकी possibility क्या है that it would materialize. And fourth thing is plan of action, कि how the company is going to address it. Say students, we studied by an example. Say there is a company, okay, say it is engaged in manufacturing of something, say manufacturing of furniture. Assume that a company is engaged in manufacturing of furniture. Now there is a possibility that some products from are being imported, some furniture items are being imported in the country from some other countries. Okay, say from some other country, these are being imported और उनकी भी डिमांड है. So इससे क्या होगा? इससे कंपनी की जो फर्नीचर आइटम्स की है उसकी डिमांड कम हो रही है. डिमांड कम हो रही है तो उसकी सेल पे फर्क पड़ेगा. सेल भी कम होने के चांस है. तो ये कंपनी का क्या है? It is a business risk. It is a business risk of the company. So company has identified a business risk. So first step is this identification of business risk. Okay. Now whether this thing is important or not, significance of identified risk. रिस्क बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. इट इज वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट. अगर कंपनी के जो इंपोर्टेड चीज आ रही है अगर उसकी सेल्स ज्यादा होगी और कंपनी के प्रोडक्ट की डिमांड कम हो गई तो ऑब्वियसली कंपनी के सेल्स पे इंपैक्ट होगा, उसकी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी पे इंपैक्ट होगा फ्यूचर में. होगा क्या नहीं स्टूडेंट्स? सो थर्ड थिंग इज लाइकलीहुड ऑफ अकरेंस. कि क्या इसके डिमांड होने के चांसेस हैं. कंपनी खुद कर रही है. बिकॉज यू रिमेंबर, ऑलवेज रिमेंबर कि इंटरनल कंट्रोल रिलेट्स टू द कंपनी. ऑडिटर ओनली स्टडीज इट. हियर वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द कंपनी. ये दिस इज नॉट द वर्क ऑफ द ऑडिटर. दिस इज द जॉब ऑफ द कंपनी. दिस इज द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द कंपनी. Okay, so do not confuse it with auditor's risk assessment procedures. Okay. Number 4 is plan of action. Then how the company tries to meet this competition. Okay. उसके क्या एक्शन प्लान है? क्या कंपनी जो प्रोडक्ट्स इंपोर्ट हो रहे हैं क्या उसी का कोई प्लांट लगाने जा रही है या कुछ अपने प्रोडक्ट में इंप्रूवमेंट करने जा रही है? सो दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स. सो दीज आर पार्ट ऑफ एंटिटीज रिस्क असेसमेंट प्रोसेस. These are part of entity's risk assessment process. So ऑडिटर का रोल क्या है स्टूडेंट्स इसमें? ऑडिटर का रोल ये है, ऑडिटर इज कंसर्न दैट whether the entity has conducted its risk assessment or not. Auditor is concerned with this thing, whether the company has conducted risk assessment or not, because if the company is not aware of those risks, then it might affect the reliability of financial reporting. Say guys, if the company sales fall in the future drastically due to import of these imported goods, then company may not continue as a going concern in future. Okay, so the auditor is concerned that the entity has conducted its risk assessment or not, and if it has conducted risk assessment, then whether the company has identified those risks and what is their action plan, what is the plan of the company to address those risks. Auditor is concerned with that. He has not to make company's risk assessment. He is not concerned with that. That is the in-house process of the company. The auditor has to only ensure that company is aware of those risks which are relevant to its business, and it has carried out that the management has carried out its own risk analysis, and on the basis of that risk analysis the company has prepared some plan to address those risks. Okay, and why this is important? Because it is important for the auditor, because it might affect the reliability of some assertions of the financial statements. Okay guys, so is that clear? Now Jenny, you are asking, can you explain third point once again? Which third point, Jenny, you are asking? Whether you are asking third point of entities risk assessment process? If you are asking about entities risk assessment process, then third point was likelihood of their occurrence. That what is the possibility that these risks would occur. So what we are trying to say is that every big company, every management tries to make its risk assessment of its own business risk. Now that is done by the company, because you understand it is a component of the internal control. So obviously all things which are components of internal control, these all belong to the company. What the auditor is concerned with, auditor is concerned with the study of these. So auditor is concerned with study of these so as to see that that financial statements continue to be reliable, that whatever is stated in financial statements is not affected by these things. Okay. Yes, Jenny, is that clear? Yes. Hope it is clear to you, Jenny. So entities risk assessment process is clear to you guys? You have understood it? Yes, students. Yes, students, is that clear? Entities risk assessment process, and first point was control environment. Both things are clear. So we have done two components of internal control. One was control environment and another is entities risk assessment process. So you are able to link, students, what do we mean by control environment? You are also able to link what do we mean by entities risk assessment process. You have a picture in your mind? Yes, no issues, guys. Hope you have understood. Third is information system. Related to including the related business processes, relevant to financial reporting. So I am writing F4 for financial reporting and communication. So fairly long name. So this is the third component of internal control. Now Muhammad Abid Vora, you are writing, please precise entities risk assessment process. What do you want me to do? I have explained it twice. Muhammad Abid, please precise entity risk assessment process. What is the meaning of it? You want me to explain again or what do you want me to do? Now you are saying you have understood. Okay. So guys, what is this component? In first you understand what is information system. So what is information system, students? Information system means system by which information is produced. Say what does it consist of? Say obviously कोई भी फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन को कैप्चर करने के लिए यू वुड हैव टू हैव सम सिस्टम. से देयर वुड बी हार्डवेयर, ओके, देयर वुड बी सॉफ्टवेयर, देयर वुड बी people, say there would be data and there would be procedures. These 5 things would be there in any information systems. Hardware, software, people, the people who are operating it, physical system, software, data, there would be entries, the data which is entered, and procedures, procedure by which system things are, transactions are captured. Okay. So what is the therefore auditor to study in the information system? Now the auditor would want to see that information system is identify and recording all valid transactions. Okay, and these are recorded in timely manner, in appropriate accounts and amounts. And these are ultimately reflected in financial statements. Okay, and the auditor would also be concerned about how this information is being communicated. Like what are their in-house manuals, कि मैनेजमेंट की इंस्ट्रक्शंस क्या हैं, कि फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग की से हर महीने इन हाउस मैनेजमेंट के कंट्रोल के हिसाब से 10 रिपोर्ट जनरेट होनी है. ओके, So how the management is communicating these things among the employees down the line from the senior to the lower level employees, and how the management is communicating with the say some regulators, with some external agencies regarding regarding financial information. So all these things fall within the system of within the broad heading you can remember as information system. So you have understood that information system consists of hardware, software, people, procedure, and data. Okay, so the auditor is concerned that information system is identifying and recording all valid transactions, and these are being captured on a timely basis. Okay, and these are being recorded appropriately in appropriate accounts. Okay, so is that clear, guys? Is that clear? Okay, so we would be taking students a short break of about 7-8 minutes. So see you after 7-8 minutes, guys. So break for 8 minutes. So fourth component, students, is control activities. So name might sound you confusing, students, but the name of the component is control activities. It is a component of internal control. तो कंट्रोल एक्टिविटीज का क्या मतलब है? कंट्रोल एक्टिविटीज का मतलब है एक्टिविटीज विच एंश्योर दैट directives of management are carried out. तो से स्टूडेंट्स मैनेजमेंट ने एक सिस्टम बना दिया से management has made a system that say wastage in a particular process should be not more than 10%. ओके और से मैनेजमेंट ने सिस्टम बना दिया कि हमारा सेल्स का बजट ये होना चाहिए से सम एक्स अमाउंट. देन हाउ डज मैनेजमेंट इंश्योर कि जो उन्होंने सिस्टम बनाया था दैट इनफैक्ट इज हैपनिंग. सो उसके लिए we say these are all control activities like. so control activities के क्या एग्जांपल है? like first thing is authorization. मैनेजमेंट ऑथोराइज करेगी तभी तो एम्प्लॉइज को अप्लाई करेंगे. ओके. नंबर 2 इज परफॉर्मेंस रिव्यूज. Performance reviews means say comparing what has been achieved by the employees, review of their performance. So it is done say by comparing with budgets, whether the targets are met or not. Okay. And third thing is information processing. Now controls over information processing. It means to say controls over information processing. तो कोई भी इंफॉर्मेशन है स्टूडेंट्स उस पे से वी कैन से देयर कैन बी 2 टाइप ऑफ कंट्रोल्स. से वन इज से एप्लीकेशन रिलेटेड कंट्रोल और जनरल आईटी रिलेटेड कंट्रोल. किसी प्रोग्राम पे पासवर्ड लगा हुआ है तो इट इज ए जनरल आईटी कंट्रोल. सो एप्लीकेशन रिलेटेड कंट्रोल मींस कि जो उस एप्लीकेशन इज गिविंग द डिजायर्ड रिजल्ट, कि जो वो एप्लीकेशन चीजें प्रोड्यूस कर रही है वो दैट इंफॉर्मेशन इज करेक्ट, दैट इज अरिथमेटिकली करेक्ट. ओके. से द कैलकुलेशंस आर बीइंग ऑटोमेटिकली in that application. So it means that control relating to that application control is working properly. Okay. So number 4th is physical controls. So this is it is also part of control activities like physical control devised by the management for safeguarding of assets, for safeguarding of physical assets. Okay. And number 5 is segregation of duties. It is also a control activity कि different employees की duties बांटी हुई हैं. These have been segregated. Okay. One person is not responsible for doing all type of things. So what the auditor is supposed to do in these control activities? So what the auditor is supposed to do in these control activities? How these are relevant? So auditor makes a study of the control activities which are a part of the internal control system, which are part of the which are a component of internal control, part of the internal control to assess the risk of identify and assess risk of material misstatement. उसको ऑडिटर को सारे इंटरनल कंट्रोल को स्टडी करना है और कंट्रोल एक्टिविटीज भी उस इंटरनल कंट्रोल सिस्टम का पार्ट है. तो is that clear? Is that clear, guys? So why would auditor want to study control activities? Because these are part of internal control system. By studying performance reviews, okay, by seeing authorizations, okay, by studying documentation relating to segregation of duties, and by studying controls over information processing, he tries to gain an understanding that these controls are functioning properly, that what is the risk of material misstatement. Say if the control over information processing of that application are not working properly, it means that financial information being produced by the information system is not relevant. Okay, or if say passwords are being manipulated, say in a bank you would see in banks there would be requirement to change the passwords frequently so that these are not misused. Okay, and fifth component is monitoring activities. कि जो कंट्रोल लगाए हैं मॉनिटरिंग ऑफ कंट्रोल्स, उसका मॉनिटरिंग भी तो होनी चाहिए. These are being monitored. It is also part of internal control that these continue to be implemented. These are operating effectively. Okay, guys. So guys, we have understood 5 components of internal control. So we have understood 5 components of internal control. What are those components? I am again repeating their names. First, remember their names, and now you have a broad picture. What is the meaning of these components of internal control? First was number 1, it was control environment. Number 2, it was entities risk assessment process. Number 3rd, it was information system, including the relevant business process relevant to financial reporting and communication. And number 4 was control activities. And number 5th was monitoring activities. monitoring of controls. Now we would go through your module quickly to see what is there. Components of internal control. So again, the 5 things: control environment, entities, risk assessment process, information system, control activities, and monitoring of controls. Now, what is control environment? The auditor shall obtain an understanding of the control environment. What understanding he will evaluate whether management has created a culture of honesty and ethical behavior. The strengths in the control environment collectively provide an appropriate foundation for other components of internal control. As I have told you, that if the control environment is not proper, how the other parts of the control system would function. Okay. So the elements of internal control, किन किन चीजों से control environment बनता है? Elements of control environment mean किन किन चीजों से control environment बनता है? Communication and enforcement of integrity and ethical values. This I have told you, that whether management sees that ethical values are imbibed in the system. Commitment to competence, management honors competent people. Okay, there are proper people with good skills and knowledge. So Abdul, you are writing why in point B and C it mentioned that component of control environment instead of component of internal control. B and C, what you are saying? No, Abdul, you have to study it from here. Components of internal control. The division of internal control into following 5 components. So these are the 5 components described here. Number 1 is control environment, B is entities risk assessment process, 3rd is information system, 4 is control activities, and 5th is monitoring of control. There is no doubt here. Now here first we are reading about control environment. Okay. And what other things are? Participation by those charged with governance. Same thing. D, management philosophy and operating style. Management कैसे decision लेती है? Organization structure I have told you कैसा है? Assignment, whether assignment of authority, staff को different authority responsibility segregate करके दी हुई है. Human resource policy is very important. How important are human resource policies of the company? Students, you would remember that there are some companies in, say, not only in India, but say in other countries in world, which are known for their employee friendly policies, that employees are not willing to leave those companies because those companies value their human resources. They give them good compensation and they take care of their needs, and they give them proper training, they give them promotion. Okay. And in turn, employees also put best of their efforts, and they do not want to leave those companies, and the employee turnover is very low in such companies. Okay. Second component is entities risk assessment process. All these 4 things we have already considered. So the entity should have a process for identifying business risks, estimating significance of business risks, assessing likelihood of their occurrence, and deciding actions. These four things we have discussed by giving you example of a company. Okay. So this point should be clear to you. Entities risk assessment process I have already explained to you in fair detail. And number third is information system, including the related business processes relevant to financial reporting and communication. Now the auditor shall obtain an understanding of the information system. जिस इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम से इंफॉर्मेशन जो कैप्चर कर रहा है, जिससे इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम प्रोड्यूस हो रही है, द ऑडिटर हैज टू सी वेदर it is capable of capturing the information that all valid transactions are being recorded. उन ट्रांजेक्शंस का प्रोसीजर क्या है जिससे वो इनिशिएट हो रही हैं, ऑथोराइज हो रही हैं, रिकॉर्ड हो रही हैं, और क्या अकाउंटिंग रिकॉर्ड्स हैं उसके. ओके, सो the factors which are to be considered are the classes of transactions which are significant to financial statements. कौन सी ट्रांजैक्शन सिग्निफिकेंट है. नंबर टू, procedures by which these transactions are initiated, recorded, processed. This I have told you. What is the system? How authorization is done? Who initiates the transactions? Who checks it? And what are the accounting records? How the system captures events and the financial reporting process. How ultimately the whole information is condensed in the form of financial statements. What is the process? Who is responsible for it? How do employees are responsible to the management? Yes, Abdul, you are stating that you are asking about point B, which is entities risk assessment process. It says part of internal control. Component of control environment. Yes, it should be here. Component of internal control. You are right. It should be here component of internal control, not component of internal control environment. So there is a publishing mistake here. It is a component of internal control, not control environment. Okay. And fourth thing is control activities. Now these activities, components, control activities. What are the control activities? Control activities ensure, what do these ensure? These ensure that management directives are carried out according to the will of the management. Now, how does management ensure it? How does management ensure it? So first of all, you have to understand that control activities are the policies that help ensure that management directives are carried out. Okay. Now this is the meaning of control activities. Now here this diagram is given: authorization, performance reviews, information processing, physical control, segregation of duties. I have already explained to you all these things. Okay. So control activities, which are now we come to control, which are the control activities that are relevant to audit. So control activities, so students बहुत जगह होंगी एक टोटल बिजनेस में, लेकिन कंट्रोल एक्टिविटीज कौन सी रेलिवेंट है ऑडिट के लिए? These are activities which relate to significant risks. So what are significant risks? Now guys, this question is also very important. This has come many times in exams. How does auditor determine what are the significant risks? In exercising judgment as to whether which risk is significant risk, the auditor shall consider at least the following. Now, you can say these are the factors which are to be considered by the auditor to analyze which risk is a significant risk. Now, whether this risk is a risk of fraud, if that risk is a risk of fraud, it becomes a significant risk. Whether the risk is related to recent change in some economic or accounting developments. Say there is change in some say accounting standards, okay, or there is change in some macroeconomic condition. So whether the risk of misstatement relates to that, so then that would be a significant risk. Complexity of transaction. If transaction is very complex, then the risk becomes significant because there would be more chance of that risk happening. So in complex transactions, the risk is significant. Whether risk involve transactions with related parties, if the company is doing transaction with some related parties, related parties, I think you already know. So then that risk also becomes significant risk because it is also prone to misstatement. There would be a possibility that those transactions with related parties, they might be not actual transactions, or they might have been carried out at the actual prices. Okay. Yes, Abdul, when these were changed, when you are saying change in financial reporting from framework from ES to Ind AS, yes, when these were changed, when these became applicable. Okay. So the degree of subjectivity in the measurement, because why, Abdul, this was important. Say the year in which transition took place, then or in case of some company takes place, then it is more liable, it is more prone to misstatements. It would be more prone to misstatements because the company would be switching over to Ind AS for the first time, and there would be likelihood that the company is not complying with all the things which are there in Ind AS. Okay. Yes, Pranav, you are asking example of complex transaction. Complex transaction, say the company uh, has purchased some business during the year. It has taken over some business. Then obviously for recording of this business, obviously complex entries would have been made, and there might be issues in recording those transactions. Okay, so this is an example of complex transactions. So clear, students? So these are the factors which are to be considered by the auditor, at least to consider risks which are significant risks. So as a broad outline, you can understand that all non-routine transactions, the transactions which are non-routine, एक business की transaction है, say company is manufacturing, is engaged in manufacturing of something and revenue is coming. These are routine transactions. All expenses are happening, sales are happening. These are routine transactions. But say I have given you an example of purchase of business, takeover of some company during the year, then that is it is not going to happen every day. So that is a sort of non-routine transactions. Okay, or the transactions which involve significant judgment or which involve significant estimates. So these also carry significant risks. Okay. So here again the same thing. Risk of material misstatement is greater for significant non-routine transactions. Why? Because greater management intervention to specify the accounting treatment. क्योंकि अगर वो routine transaction नहीं है, it is happening once in a while, once in many years. So the management would intervene it. It would not happen automatically. Okay. And management's own judgment could be involved in it. Okay. Greater manual intervention for data collection and processing. And it might involve greater manual intervention because the transaction might not be automated. Okay. So how entry for this is to be passed, how this transaction is going to be recorded, then there can be judgment involved. Say you another example you can take. A fire happens in the plant of the company and it destroys the assets of the company. Then how this transaction is to be recorded? Now these type of events are not going to happen every day. It is once in many years. So whether these have been recorded correctly or not, okay, or whether some loss has occurred or whether whole amount would be recovered from the insurance company. So all these things would have to be taken care of. Okay, so the accounting staff might not be well versed with how the transaction is to be recorded. So complex calculations or accounting principles, or there is some complex calculation involved, or there is a matter of judgment, there is some interpretational issue relating to some accounting principle, then it also carries a significant risk. And risk of material misstatement greater for significant judgmental matters. Those matters in which judgment of management is involved, like which is subject to different interpretations. Say in relation to some accounting standard, there are different interpretations. The management interprets it differently. As an auditor, you interpret it differently. So obviously, there is going to be a risk of misstatement, that the amounts recorded in the financial statements are misstated. Okay. Yes, whatever is a complex transaction, Abdul, you can take any example. It is a matter of professional judgment for the auditor whether he wants to. But you are saying new land purchase, so it does not seem to be any sort of complex transaction carrying a significant risk. There can be many examples of this. Because new land purchase, although it is not a routine transaction, but how it is going to carry significant risk, it is for the auditor to decide. Obviously, he would be checking, he would be verifying the title deed of the land, that the land is in the name of the company and it has been recorded at the amount which it was purchased. And in normal situation, there should not be any complexity about it. Okay. Monitoring of controls, component of internal control. Monitoring of controls, component of internal controls. So monitoring of control means that controls are being implemented, that मैनेजमेंट सीज दैट जो मैंने काम करने के लिए बोला था एम्प्लॉय को, जो ड्यूटी फिक्स की थी, इट इज हैपनिंग. सो whether it is happening or not, it is being monitored. Okay, say we again go to our example on bank reconciliation. The employee was given a task to prepare bank reconciliation statement fortnightly. Now after 3 months the management evaluates a responsible person in the management evaluates whether this work is done or not. So he is monitoring that control. Okay. So management's monitoring activities may include using information from communication from external parties such as customer complaint and regular comments. So customer feedback, say the companies who are directly engaged uh, with end users. So the companies might be giving them feedback. Okay, that this thing is not operating nowadays. You might be seeing that whenever you go to purchase uh, some new thing, normally a feedback call comes. How was your experience? Say you go to buy a car, so obviously after 7-10 days you would get a feedback call. How was your experience? Because the management wants to know that whatever controls they had set up for in relation to service to customers, whether those were operating or not. So this is another example. Or what were the complaints of the customers? Okay. So similarly, some consideration in case of small entities. Here the owner himself would be involved in monitoring everything. Okay. Now there is one more point. If the entity is having internal audit function. So students, we would be studying about internal audit function in last part of this chapter, day after tomorrow. So we would cover it here, there then. Okay. Satisfactorily control environment, not an absolute deterrent to fraud. Now, guys, you have to remember that if the control environment is satisfactory, then it doesn't mean that a fraud cannot happen. It is not a deterrent. It is not an absolute deterrent to fraud. Absolute means complete. It is not a complete deterrent to fraud. Deterrent means that it does not stop fraud completely. It only gives a comfort to the auditor. It only gives an assurance to the auditor that control environment is satisfactory, and he can place reliance on the control, that likely control risk is lower. Okay. But if there are deficiencies in control environment, then obviously these undermine the effectiveness of control, and the auditor would like to place a less reliance. So another thing, the control environment, this is very important. The control environment in itself does not prevent or detect and correct a material misstatement. It may, however, influence the auditor's evaluation of effectiveness of other controls. कंट्रोल एनवायरनमेंट अपने आप में, अगर कंट्रोल एनवायरनमेंट अच्छा है, कंट्रोल एनवायरनमेंट सेटिस्फैक्टरी है, तो अपने आप में इस चीज की गारंटी नहीं है कि वो मटेरियल मिस स्टेटमेंट को प्रिवेंट कर सके या उसको डिटेक्ट या करेक्ट कर सके. ओके. बट इट हेल्प्स द ऑडिटर इवेल्युएट इफेक्टिवनेस ऑफ अदर कंट्रोल्स. लेकिन वो अदर कंट्रोल्स को इवेल्युएट करने में ऑडिटर को हेल्प करता है. So what are the benefits of evaluation of internal control to the auditor, guys? These we have already studied. He may come to know which are the areas of errors and frauds. Okay. So he can design further audit procedures. Okay, whether he comes to know whether controls safeguard the assets, so such kind of things. So how reliable are the reports produced by the management? So once you have understood the meaning of internal control, guys, once you understand the meaning, definition, and objective of something, all other things are going to flow from it naturally. आपको स्टूडेंट्स क्रैम करने की जरूरत नहीं है, इसीलिए मैं आपको कह रहा हूं कि यू प्लेस एम्फेसिस ऑन फंडामेंटल्स. ओके, you understand what is the meaning of that term, then if you understand its meaning, its objective, it is you have mastery in understanding that term, then all these things, benefits, advantages, disadvantages, these will come to you naturally. Okay, got the point, guys? Formulate an audit program after understanding the internal control. Obviously, if the auditor has not understood the internal control, the audit program designed by him. What was audit program? We had read in chapter 2. It was a set of instructions given to assistants to carry out the audit work. Okay, so if the audit program, if the internal controls have not been understood properly, then audit program would not do complete justice, because it might contain some instructions which are not relevant, or it might leave some important areas. Because why? Because the auditor has not completely understood the control system operating in the organization, operating in the company. Okay, so it is about these are about all these things. Now, evaluation of internal control methods. Now, how does an auditor evaluate the internal control system? So we have read about the components of internal control. Now, what are the methods of evaluation of internal control system? So there are broadly, students, 4 methods given in your module. One is narrative record. First, I'm writing names. One is narrative record. Second is checklist. Third is internal control questionnaire. And fourth is flowchart. These are 4 methods of evaluation of internal control. Now, what is meaning of evaluation? That auditor has made a study. He has understood of the internal. He has grasped a basic understanding of the internal control. Now, practically, how he would be evaluating it, how he would be assessing its effectiveness. So, what is the way of doing it practically? How he would understand the internal control practically when an auditor conducts the audit. Now, there are 4 methods of evaluation of internal control. First is narrative record. Narrative record, students, इसका मतलब है that auditor makes a record of everything in respect of internal control, like what is the system of purchases, how goods are, what is the control over inventories, what is the control over sales, what is the control over fixed assets, what is the control over cash payment say. So he make a descriptive record and he makes an assessment whether it is effective or not. But as you would understand that such a method is not beneficial in case of large companies. In case of large companies, such a method is not beneficial. It would be only beneficial for small organizations. Okay, because in case of large organizations, it might become too unwieldy to handle. Okay, and now we come to second method. What is the second method? Second method is checklist. So checklist is basically in the question answer form. Like I ask question regarding purchases, how goods are received. Okay, so whether these first go to store department, yes or no. So these type of questions. Okay, so I would be making a checklist for all these type of things, for purchases, for sales. And these questions checklist is to be filled by the staff of the auditor. They observe it and they fill it. And third point is internal control questionnaire. I am writing IC, internal control questionnaire. Now this is the most popular methods in case of large concerns in large companies. Now it also contains questions and answers, yes, no, remarks like say system relating to purchase of fixed assets. So there would be many questions, 1, 2, 3, 4 relating to it. How budget is determined, whether some tender is placed or not. Okay, and these sort of things. And the difference between checklist and IC questionnaire is that in checklist it is filled by auditor staff and IC is filled by employee staff. So the auditor is giving the questionnaire to the company, to the client कि आप लोग हमें भर के दो, आपका क्या सिस्टम है, and then auditor studies this. He makes an assessment of this, he studies it and he sees whether there are deficiencies in it, and these deficiencies are then reported to the management. So this is how it operates. Okay. And the fourth thing is flow chart. Flow chart is in the form of flow chart, which shows transactions. Okay. And it gives a bird's eye view of the whole of the important operations. So these are the 4 methods of the evaluation of internal control. Okay, guys. So now we will study from your module what is there. narrative record, checklist, internal control questionnaire, and flowchart. Okay, 4 things are there. So what is narrative record? Complete and exhaustive description of system as found in operation by the auditor. Now here the auditor records everything. So it is suitable to small business. What is narrative? Narrative means to put in writing. Okay, like a narration. So the basic disadvantage of narrative record is to comprehend the system in operation is difficult. So everything you have to write describe it, so it becomes difficult to identify weakness or gaps in the system. So it is difficult to identify weakness or gap. Okay, and checklist. Checklist is a series of instructions which a member of auditing staff must follow or answer. So I told you that these are to be filled by the auditing staff. They have to answer these questions. Like example is given in respect of say purchases. Are tenders called before placing orders? Are purchases made on basis of written order? Are purchase order forms pre-numbered? Is purchase order form standardized? So all these kind of things. So this is checklist. And questionnaire. Questionnaire is again, it is like a checklist, but here the main difference is between checklist and questionnaire is that questionnaire is issued to the client and the client is requested to get it filled by the concerned employees. If on the perusal of questions inconsistencies are noticed, the matter is further discussed by the auditor staff with client's employees for a clear picture. So Abdul, your question has already been answered. So if employees give the wrong information, so when the when the auditor would test, they would say that you have given the wrong information. Okay, and the benefit of getting the system, getting the information filled from employees is that employees are supposed to give the information that how system is in operation, and the auditor can study that system with a cool mind, and he can identify the deficiencies that which are likely to crop up. Okay, and he can make recommendations for improvement also. He can point out the deficiencies कि ऐसा होगा तो it can lead to that misstatement. This control is not there, or this control is affecting some other control, or one control is lacking. So these sort of things. And Nikita Sachdev, you are asking, please explain point 3. I think you are asking about this point, Nikita. Say if some record is written, described in narrative form, and say some employees are changed. Okay, then it becomes very difficult. There could be some interpretational issues. Say जिस एम्प्लॉय से आपने पूछ के लिखा था वो अब कंपनी में है नहीं, तो there might be some interpretational issues. So it is not crisp information. और ऑडिट फर्म में मान लो आप कोई स्टाफ छोड़ के चला गया. Okay, then what he was wanting to convey, it is not, the other person might make some another judgment. Okay, is that clear, Nikita? And then flowchart. Flowchart is a graphic representation of each part of company system of internal control. Okay, it is a graphic representation. pictorial representation. It shows you in a chart form, and narrative explanation is minimized. Okay, and it shows the flow of transaction, how transactions are moving, say in purchase. These things goes from here to this step, and one step leads to another. How what is the flow of transactions? So it shows you clear cut flow of transaction. So it also helps in easy detection of deficiencies. Okay, is that clear? So, guys, today it was a bit theory heavy, but I've tried to explain it uh, by giving you, by making you understand in very simple general terms. And because it was theoretically heavy, therefore I have tried to rely less on your module and more in conversational language. And I think you would have understood. So quickly we would revise the points done today. Guys, we have understood the meaning of internal control. We have understood that internal control, four purposes are there. uh, reliability of financial reporting, efficiency and effectiveness of operation. Third is your safeguarding of assets, and fourth is compliance with rules and regulation. So internal control system, study of internal control helps the auditor in identifying potential misstatements and in designing nature, timing and extent of further audit procedures. Okay, he has studied the internal control, then he would be in a position to design कि उसको detailed substantive checking कहाँ कहाँ करनी है, कौन से procedures adopt करने हैं. Okay, we have also understood limitations of internal control. Employees might collude. There might be internal control might not be operating satisfactorily due to human judgment, or the employees may not understand the nature of the control, the purpose for which those were intended. Okay, and controls only provide reasonable assurance. No system is completely foolproof. Okay, and there were considerations in relation to small entities also. We have also understood 5 components of internal control. What were those 5 components? Number one was control environment, the overall environment in which the control system is functioning, like the whether management is honest, whether management is ethical, what is the organization structure, what are the HR policies adopted by the company, and what is the competence of the management, whether it is committed to excellence, these kind of things. What is the overall culture in which the company is operating? Second was entities risk assessment process. Now, whether the company has a process by which it itself estimates that what are business risks, and whether these are identified, and whether there is a plan of action to address those risks. And third point, we had noted about information systems, which consisted of hardware, software, data, procedure, and people, whether information system is reliable to capture the transactions, whether these are going in the proper accounts, whether there exists a system for initiating and recording all valid transactions. And number 4 was relating to control activities. Control activities are meant to ensure that management directives are carried out. Now, how does management ensure that? Through performance reviews, okay, through physical controls, okay, and information processing, segregation of duties, and fifth was monitoring of controls. And we have also studied that auditor evaluates internal control by use of 4 methods. What were those 4 methods? These were narrative record. It means descriptive record, that auditor has to describe everything. How internal control system was found by him to be in operation. Second thing is checklist. Checklist was to be filled by the auditor's staff, auditing staff. They are supposed to answer the questions. And IC is internal control questionnaire, which is to be filled by the employee staff, and auditor makes study of it and then identifies the deficiencies. And flow chart is it is in graphic form and gives a bird's eye view of the whole the system which is in operation pertaining to internal control. Okay, so is that clear to you guys? Tell me, is that clear to you for today? Nikita Sachdev, you are writing, your language is easy. Nikita, is it a compliment or is it a criticism, constructive criticism? Please let me know. Yes, Nikita. Yes, Nikita. Was it a compliment or constructive criticism? Yes, Anand, you are writing, how can we practice for this paper? First, students, you have to remember, first understand the things. Now, when you are hearing this lecture, you are understanding the things. At this stage, you are understanding, you are just grasping, you have become familiar with terms. आपको कुछ पता है ऑडिट रिस्क क्या होता है, यू नो ऑडिट रिस्क के कंपोनेंट्स, यू नो इंटरनल कंट्रोल, जानी पहचानी टर्म्स लग रही हैं आपको. यू हैव अंडरस्टूड ऑडिट प्रोग्राम, you know audit strategy, audit planning, you know about audit procedures, audit evidence. चाहे आपको सारे audit procedures याद नहीं है, लेकिन you know कि audit procedures का मतलब क्या है. You know about audit evidence, you know about some essays also, you know about essay 200, essay 300, okay, and others. But now next step is to do a sustained reading. Now you have to remember the things. Now what you do, you take a chapter, you start with chapter 1 and you devote 2-3 days on it. Okay, and you remember the things, you try to analyze the things, you try to remember, because guys, unless you do not remember, you will not be able to write. Hearing the lecture is just a first step. It is only a first step in understanding the things. Now you have only gained a basic understanding. Okay. But now your work starts. Now your work starts after understanding your work. The work starts at your end. Okay. As far as MCQs are concerned, Abdul, I have already uploaded it. So because I have tried to cover a lot of topics today, so we'll be doing these MCQs along with other questions in our next session on Monday. Okay, guys. So good night to all of you. A very good night. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.